Hello YouTube. What you see in front of us here is this week's project. We're going to build what I would call a mobile A-frame, but I guess it's also called a gantry, and let's get started. I did actually make some drawings. We have the post, which is 3 2x4s glued and screwed together. We have the base, which is also 3 2x4s screwed together and glued. We put the post inside of the base and we'll make a 45-degree brace. Then we'll make a gusset that goes over that brace, and each one of those dots represents a bolt. Here's the gusset. This is the top of the gantry. The beam is made up of two 2x10s. We have another 45-degree brace, and we're going to put wheels on the bottom. The first thing we'll do is make the post. It's decision time. How tall do we make this? If we want this gantry to fit underneath the air cleaner, it can be no taller than 105 inches. So we'll make it 104 inches. Now by decision time is if I don't make it clear this, then the next thing I have to clear is this, which is 111 inches tall. And that fits outside of the garage door, which is even taller than that. So if I don't go underneath the air cleaner, I can get a little more height. But I think I want the flexibility of being able to roll underneath that air cleaner. So we're going with 104 inches. We have a side view drawing of our gantry with the post that sits down onto the base and the base that sits down onto some casters. The casters are 6 1/8 inches tall. The base of the leg is going to be 1.5 inches tall. We know that we want our total height of 104 inches. So if we take 1.5 inches and 6 1/8 away from 104, we end up with 96 3/8 inches. That means the center post is going to be 96 3/8 inches. We'll cut the first of our 3 laminations of a post at 96 3/8. What we have here is 6 2x4s that are 69 3/8 of an inch long. But we want the top of the post to look like this. Have a peg sticking out of it so that we can bolt our cross members to and have it sit on top of the outside 2x4. So we have to shorten the outside 2x4s by 7 1/8 inches because that's how wide a 2x8 is. So we'll mark off 7 1/8 inches. Cut that. Here we go. Now I need 3 more. What we have here is the post for our gantry, and we have the notch for the 2x8 that we're going to put in, and now we're going to glue it and screw it. And we'll spread that glue out a little bit. And we'll set our 2x4 on top of it. Put some screws in to hold it while it's drying. And now the boards aren't laying quite one on top of another. So we'll take a C-channel and a block of wood and we'll push that in so it lines up nice. And we'll do the next one. Next we're going to build the legs, and that consists of 3 2x4s, 2 on end and 1 on its side, screwed together, and we're going to make them 4.5 feet long. We now have the 6 pieces we need for our legs, and they'll go together like this. And our post will sit right down here in the center. Here we are, gluing and screwing the legs together. And wipe the glue off here. What we have laid out here are the legs and the 2 posts. And what we have to do is take this post and put it into this leg. Let's put some glue at the foot and slide it in. There it is, it's bottomed out. Let's wipe off some of this excess glue. I guess I was thinking that that was a deeper pocket. Wow, I didn't have to put all that glue on. Let's square it up. Wow, it's pretty square. And we'll put some screws in to temporarily hold it in place. The next thing we'd like to address are the braces for the posts. And I made them out of 2 2x4s glued and screwed together. And the 2x4s I used were the scraps left over from the legs. So the first thing I did was spread some glue. Put a 2x4 on top of it. And these are the scraps left over from the legs. And we'll put some screws in it, but well away from the ends so that we don't run into it when we cut it. Then we'll cut a 45 on the end, and unfortunately, my chop saw doesn't cut all the way through. So we have to turn it around and cut it the rest of the way. And then we're going to have to smooth that out a little bit. So we left a little bit here when we cut it. We didn't get it exact, so we got to grind that off. There we go, smooth. Let's see how it fits. I think that's pretty good. You know the routine. We're going to glue and screw it temporarily, and then we're going to bolt it. With the post, legs, and braces in place, and we're almost ready to turn this upright, I'm going to put wheels on the bottom. Now I don't want to put wheels on the bottom before we turn it upright because it's going to be unmanageable. But I don't want to have to drill the holes when the thing is upright. So what I've done is made a template of the holes in the bottom of the caster. And putting casters on the bottom of a gantry is questionable, particularly ones that swivel. But what this one does is it locks the wheel in place, but it also locks the caster in place. So it'll be as if it can't roll. So this template is where I want the holes. I want this thing about 1 inch back from the edge. So let's mark it. If I put this template up here like this and mark the holes, I can now drill those holes, but I can also go around and mark all the rest of the holes. Let's drill those holes and try it out. Let's mount one up. And that's what it'll look like. But now I'm going to take it back off because I don't want to play with it when I turn it upright. Now I'll go around and mark the rest of the legs. Now that we have the wheels marked, I want to create a gusset that goes right here. And the best way I can think of to do that is to slide the piece of wood underneath the post and remove the 2x4s that are holding the post up. We want the gusset even with the top and parallel with the bottom. We have it even with the top, and if I measure down to the bottom, it measures 16 inches there and just under 16 there. And now what we'll do is trace the outline. So if I could make that cut, and I make that cut, I should have a perfect gusset. I think we'll cut this on the radial arm. And let's try the gusset. And it fits perfect. Let's make another. That'll hold it until we bolt it in place. We're going to use some 3/8 by 7 inch carriage bolts, and that will just go through the layers of 2x4s that we have. And what we have to do is lay out for the bolts now. And the way I'm going to do that is first determine where the 2x4s are. So we'll draw a line for that, and a line for that, and the center line, because we don't want the bolt to go into the center, we want it to go into a 2x4. We'll draw a line for the floor of our leg here. So we want our bolts somewhere in here. And this is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure 1 inch down, so we're into a lot of meat there. So 1 inch down is right there. And with the 2x4s, turn it on the side like that, they're almost 2 inches across. So if we put the bolt in the center of the 2 inches, which is 1 inch, we should be in the center of the 2x4. And now what we have to do is drill a 3/8 inch hole all the way through all this, keeping it nice and straight. Pull the drill out and take the sawdust out. It makes the drilling easier. We take 2 carriage bolts and sliding them up into the holes. And tap the carriage bolt head into the wood. Put a washer and a nut. And we'll do that to the rest of them. Remember, this is our bolt pattern. 2 on the end, 2 in the center, 2 on the far end, and 4 in the gusset. So those are the holes we're going to drill. This is the last step on the last post and leg assembly before we start working on the beam. And what we have to do is tighten the bolts up. And now I think we're ready to move on to the beam. I believe this is the winch that I ordered from Amazon. Although it's not the most expensive part of the build, it's not the cheapest either. And I did spend a little money so that I could have an electric one, because I didn't want the chain falling across the car. Now, when I built the beam, I had the idea that I hang this below the beam. But it'd be even better if I could put it inside the beam. So I'm going to have to think about that. It gets narrower and narrower. That's how narrow it is. Okay, I ordered this one for a couple of reasons. One, it was wire rather than chain. Two, when you double the chain up by hooking it into the frame here, like so, you double the weight pickup, and it was 1,700 and some odd pounds when it's doubled up like that. You have to put this trolley in the center. The way it fastens, is they have these U-bolts that go in the bottom. Now obviously I can't do that. I'm going to have to do something else. Now if these are American thread, maybe I can get some threaded rod and go all the way through the beam to the hole and just bolt it to the top of the beam. Maybe put a piece of metal on the top of the beam. Okay. My first thought was to mount the winch inside the beam, and this is the making of the beam. It's going to be a solid beam, 3 2x8s glued and screwed together. The next option I have is these bolts are 4 inches apart, and the beam is 4 3/4. So if I drill a hole for this bolt in the beam, it's right at the edge. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plate on the outside of the beam, and that way I can drill a hole and I can bolt this directly to the bottom of the beam and save as much space as possible. What we decided to do was make the beam 8 feet long. This time the outboard 2x8s will be the long boards and the inside one will be the short one. It'll be short by the distance of a 2x4, and that way it'll fit over our peg that's on the top of our post. We have our 2 outside posts cut to 8 feet long, and now we need to cut the inside post, and that wants to be 8 feet long minus the 2 thicknesses of a 2x4, which is the top of the post, which is 7 inches. And we'll cut that and assemble our beam. What we have here is our beam mocked up. I have a dummy 2x4 in the end where the tab for our post is going to go. I have one in this end also. And now it's time to glue and screw our post. We'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. What we have here is our crossbeam, and I've added the plates to the side to thicken it up. The bolt hole pattern has been transferred to the beam. It is close to the edge of the outside beam, but with the two plates laminated to the outside, I think we'll be all right. It's time to drill some holes. This is some 3/8" threaded rod which screws into the base of the winch. And what I propose to do is to run the threaded rod clear through the beam and screw into the base, and that'll bolt this flush to the bottom of the beam. This is 7¼ inches. I want to have 1 inch going into the winch, and I want 1/2 inch sticking out the top so that we have room for a washer and a nut, and that works out to 8¾ inches. So let's cut some 8¾ inch lengths of threaded rod. We'll cut some 8¾ lengths of threaded rod. We'll bevel the ends so that they screw in nicely. We'll check the threads on the end of these threaded rods to make sure they screw in nicely. They all screw in good, but I see a problem. These three are nice and straight, but this one is leaning way forward. I don't know what it's going to do in the hole. I don't know, maybe I can straighten it out or something. Let's see if we can thread it into the hole. There's 1 hole, there's 2 holes, there's 3 holes, there's 4 holes, but it doesn't slide down, and I think it's because of that. Let's take this one out and see if it goes down. I've compensated for the zert nuts that are crooked in the base by drilling the hole a little crooked. And let's see if we can get it on now. One hole, 2 hole, 3 hole, 4 hole. That's better. A little persuasion there maybe at the end. But it fits. That's the idea. This is the tab in the top of our leg, and this is our beam that goes across. And the whole theory was that we'd slide this tab into the beam. And we'll have to square it up. There we go, down home. Down home. Check it for square. And we're pinched in just a little bit. This joint we're not going to glue. We want to be able to take this apart. But for right now I'm going to put a couple screws in it to hold it in place. And now we'll do a layout of 3 bolts. We're down to 2 2x4s and 4 casters. We have to make 4 braces for the post and the beam. We cut our two 2x4s into braces to stop lateral movement in the beam, and we'll screw it in temporarily and then bolt it. Okay, so what you got to do is pick it up. Okay. Is it going to clear the air cleaner? Okay, now get on the post. Okay, I got most of it. What you're going to let go?
What do you want me to do?
I want you to move the garbage can so it comes down on top of the garbage can. Let's see if we can get this winch in place. It would have been so much easier if these holes had been straight. Now we're going to need a little persuasion, I think. I did make a mistake. I centered the winch on the beam, and what I should have done is centered the rope on the center of the beam. It's going to cause whatever I'm lifting to be off by that much. We got to get one more bolt through, and then I can pull it up with the bolts. Alright, I got enough bolts that I can pull this thing up with the bolts. What I've decided to do is to cut 3-inch squares and drill a 3/8-inch hole in the center of it and use those as backing plates rather than washers, and there's no way that this will get pulled through the beam. We've already drilled an 1/8-inch guide hole through our 3-inch plate, and now we'll drill some 3/8-inch holes so that the bolt will clear the hole. We'll take the time to put a little radius on the edges of these holes, and then we'll go over to the belt grinder and we'll grind these edges so they're nice and smooth. And now we'll smooth these sharp edges off. So let's put this plate on, and that's certainly not going to get pulled through the beam. And put a nut on there and tighten it up. And repeat it. We're down to putting the casters on, and what I have to do is lift the gantry so that I have room to bolt the casters on. If you'll remember, we pre-drilled the holes, so it shouldn't be too bad. The last thing we need to do is put the casters on, and I'm certainly glad that I pre-drilled these holes, because it would be difficult to do that underneath the gantry. This is what it looks like up in the air, and we've doubled up the wire so that the action is a little slower. If I leave it as a single pull, it's awful quick, but that's certainly acceptable. And will do the job that we need it to do. And it does shut off. So, all right, here's the first practical use of our gantry. We'll lower it down a little bit to get the center of gravity down lower. And now we're going to pull it inside. The body's not ready to come off the car, otherwise I would pick it up and demonstrate that. I think the gantry is plenty strong. I think you could also pick up an engine with it if you wanted to. If you enjoyed this video, there'll be more.